Hello there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Flight Box. My name is Ray. Thank you so much for joining me. The Peacemaker Season 2 tour continues, as I'm here to talk about Peacemaker Season 2, Episode 3, Another Rick Up My Sleeve, which turned out to be a slightly misleading title, right? For those of you who saw it, and hopefully you've seen the episode before listening to this particular spoiler-filled breakdown of the episode, and it's an interesting one to talk about because there's a number of things like behind the scenes, if you will, not behind the scenes in terms of production, but a number of things in the background of this particular episode that we definitely have to converse about with respect to that. But before diving headfirst into the discussion this week on Peacemaker Season 2, Episode 3, I want to remind everybody that you can find this show and my other shows at theflightcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts with respect to the main show, Flightcast, which pops up on Tuesdays, and then Thursdays are usually reserved for either Flight Box or Flight Alert. The last episode I did was Flight Alert because I had to talk about the revelation, James Gunn announcing Man of Tomorrow, the next chapter of the Superman saga, and what that meant, and also how he crafted what I thought was a very brilliant announcement. If you want to hear my thoughts on that, you can go listen to that. That came out on Thursday. Saturdays are usually reserved for, if I do any episodes of Flight Review or, anything extra like Flight Box, which normally this episode, again, this is targeted for Saturday, but with football season in full swing, I talked about this last week. It's made recording a little difficult over the weekends. In fact, right now I'm recording this episode just as the Lions game is about to start, and that's gonna be kind of tough. A little tough. I'm going to be, my attention is going to be a little divided, but don't worry, I'll be able to get my thoughts out with respect to everything I'm talking about today. But yeah, weekends are usually reserved for that. But you can find all that at theflightcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's Apple Podcasts, the Flightcast YouTube channel, because all these episodes get posted there whenever they go live, Spotify, and also Pandora. You can find the Flightcast or wherever you get your podcast. And also want to take a moment, of course, to thank all of the supporters of patreon.com/theflightcast. If you are a subscriber, whether you are a flight crew member or a flight officer, flight crew gets you access to Friday Flight and Flight Speed. Flight officer gets you access to everything else. But there's a new show that I popped up with yesterday because there have been some times, like in the last few months or so, where I haven't gotten a chance for a variety of reasons in the real world or whatnot, to do an episode of Friday Flight. And in situations like that, where I still want to talk about something, I'm like, well, can I figure out something for Saturday? And so I did. I came up, I like alliteration. I'm just being honest with you. Some inside baseball here. So I came up with Saturday Soliloquy. And this particular episode that I did yesterday, that I posted yesterday on Patreon, I can halfway blame on Shonda, because she's the one that decided to watch Suicide Squad yesterday, The Suicide Squad. And it was the second full time that I had ever watched it. And I had some thoughts. I have some very strong thoughts. It's a very interesting perspective to have if you've rewatched that movie now, after the DCEU has officially launched. Because I basically make my case for why that movie is a DCEU movie, pretty much through and through. And it's a comprehensive case. I have details, I have examples and whatnot, evidence that I present. But yeah, that's available for flight crew and flight officers as well. It's going to be the same as Friday Flight, just on Saturdays, in the event that I don't end up getting to do a Friday Flight. So hope you enjoy that, plus episodes of Flight Review, Flight Box, and Flight Report, the comic review show, that are available at patreon.com/theflightcast for flight officers. Hope you're enjoying all that content, and as soon as I get some stuff watched and or read, more episodes of those shows will be coming exclusively for Patreon members. So hope you're enjoying all of that, and as always, cannot thank you enough for your support to the Flightcast Patreon network. All right, let's get into it. Peacemaker Season 2, Episode 3, Another Rick Up My Sleeve. This was an intriguing episode because, on the surface, not a whole lot happens. This is not an episode that is like balls to the wall action. I mean, there's action in it, but it certainly is not throughout the entirety of the episode. No, there's more that happens in this episode in the background that we got to talk about. There's one massive thing that we have to talk about. Well, two massive things, really. One that was unexpected, and another one that I can't say was totally unexpected, but I also wasn't certain if I was the only one catching it or not. And I think everybody that has watched this episode knows exactly already what I'm talking about. But before diving into that, let's just talk about the welcome return of Mr. Joel Kinnaman as Rick Flag Jr. How about that? How about that? And I will admit, when he popped up in the episode, like at the beginning, I was slightly confused as to what Earth we were on. I'm like, okay, is this main Earth? Is this DCU? Or is this the other Earth? Wasn't entirely certain. But, truthfully, anything that happens in the past, I think definitely, because the other Earth is a mystery. So when we see 3 years ago, or when we see something, a precursor that lets us know this happened at a prior time, it's got to be the DCU, right? It's got to be the prime Earth, if you will, for our purposes, right? For the sake of this particular universe, for the sake of this storytelling, right? So in that regard, it's like, okay, this is clearly what happened in Rick Flag Jr.'s life beforehand. And I think also it made it obvious with the reference to Corto Maltese, because this is basically indicating that he was having an affair, if you will. He was sleeping with Harcourt initially. And, before the Corto Maltese situation. And one thing to definitely point out right now, because I saw a ton of this on threads and social media in general. No, he did not make Suicide Squad from 2016 canon. No, that is not the case. Just because he brought up the fact that he knows June Moon, aka Enchantress, does not mean that makes 2016 Suicide Squad in the DCEU canon. No, it doesn't. It most certainly does not. June Moon and Enchantress, from what I'm aware of, like the thing between her and Rick Flag is a thing in the comics, right? Like, and June Moon could be like, it could be any version. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, there weren't enough details given to us in that clip. Like, he didn't mention Deadshot. He didn't mention, the brother or whoever it was. I forget who it was. Like that took over the Union Station. He didn't bring up any other details. He didn't talk about Diablo or anybody else that was involved in that mission. He didn't talk about Harley, right? There were not other references. He only indicated that he was in a relationship. It was in a thing with June Moon, and indicated that she had the powers that basically made her Enchantress, and that he was basically cheating on her with Harcourt. That's it. That's all we know. That all that tells us is that in the DCU he met June Moon, similar as he did in the DCEU in that regard. That's all it is. So this is another situation, and I tell you, fans, I haven't seen a ton of people arguing about this, but I'm sure somebody has. But we really need to get our brains straight with respect to this being a completely different universe. And I think as fans, this goes back to the whole Justice Gang, Justice League situation and all that nonsense. We are still trying to wrap our heads personally around the fact that season 1 happens in a completely different universe than season 2 does. And it's not difficult. It really isn't. I think we're just being stubborn. I think fans literally are just being stubborn and don't want to accept that they're seeing 2 seasons of a show, one of each happening in a different universe. Like, he couldn't make that any clearer. And it's not a difficult thing to do. We headcanon so much more as fans. We seriously do. We come up with our own explanations and our own theories with respect to what's going on in the universe, and we can't deal with the facts. We can't deal with James Gunn actually telling us, hey, first season's in another universe, second season is in the current universe. And there are slight differences between what happened in each one, because I really wasn't given any marching orders or any like continuity organization with respect to the earlier DCEU films that happened before I made the Suicide Squad or Peacemaker season 1. Like, I don't understand why we can't handle that. No, I do, because fans are stubborn and they want a reason to vetch. They want a reason to be upset about something. They want a reason to nitpick. They wouldn't be fans. We wouldn't be fans on some level if we didn't nitpick something. My brain nitpicks plenty, but I'm at that point in life where it's just, I would rather be happy than nitpicky, truthfully. So I'm just going to accept what the universe tells me and how it goes, and I'm going to go from there, because all this other nonsense is noise and bullshit, to be honest with you. So I say all of that to say, no, Suicide Squad, the studio version of David Ayer's Suicide Squad film from 2016, no, is not canon in the DCU, regardless of whatever your arguments are. Not enough information was provided for that, period. So Flag's back, and we get the revelation that he had a thing with Harcourt in the DCU. Okay, that's knowledge that we didn't have before. And then we zip to Chris, Peacemaker, having passed out in the other universe. And things just continue to be way too perfect for him. And that's where part of this background stuff comes into play, right? Because we're just looking at okay, there's got to be something wrong with this universe, right? He can't be that happy. He's too tortured of a character, through the first season, and certainly with all of his ridiculousness in the Suicide Squad. Like he can't be that happy. Like this can't be that perfect for him. This can't work out that well for him. But he seizes this opportunity to like go after Harcourt in that universe because he's got an actual shot. There was something between them in this universe. He doesn't exactly know what it is, but he would like to capitalize on this. And now he's assumed the dead Peacemaker's identity, the one that he accidentally killed at the end of the first episode of this season. And he's assumed that identity. So now his brother and his father, and we don't see Augie at all. We don't see the father at all in this episode, but we do see the brother. And there's this point where, he's already set up this meeting over text with Harcourt. He's going to meet her at her job, right? Well, now he's got to find some information. This is where it seems kind of clunky. And even like, this is where being like the audience observer and like knowing all the inside baseball, you're like, okay, it doesn't seem weird to the brother or anybody else that he doesn't know certain details. He's asking where Harcourt works. He, like how to get there, like can he borrow his truck? Why don't you just take your peace cycle? Like all these details that he should know. Usually in other stories, that's like a dead ring or a dead giveaway. Like, okay, this person is not who they say they are. This person is an imposter. But they haven't either. They either haven't caught on to it yet, or they're playing dumb. Right? It's one or the other. And if they're playing dumb, then that would make what's happening even more nefarious. But he says he's going to go after Harcourt, and the brother's like, "What about the Jarhead?" And he's like, "F the Jarhead." It's like, okay, who's the Jarhead? And it did not occur to me that the Jarhead would in fact be Rick Flag of the DCU, like that. And that's where the whole tidbit of information about DCU Rick Flag having slept with Harcourt, that's where that comes into play as valuable information about the Rick Flag in this universe actually being involved with Harcourt. It's like, okay, he's the Jarhead, all right, but you don't find that out until he gets to Argus. Now, the other big background thing that I'm talking about started with respect to when he gets on the Peace Copter, he puts on the other kick-ass helmet, and he's driving through town. And we've seen this shot in trailers. We've seen this shot in TV spots and in promos, but this is the first time that we've seen this shot all the way through. When he's driving through town on his Peace Cycle, and all the townspeople are cheering him on and rooting for him, and, yeah, Peacemaker, I love you. And then that one little kid, the boy in the SUV that rolled the window down and like professed his love for Peacemaker, and Chris is like, I love you too, and the kid starts crying, like just an overpouring of emotions. Like, wow, okay, this is a ton of hero worship. This is entirely too perfect, but there was something really off about this hero worship that he was being given, and I will talk about it shortly. You already know what it is. I know it. If you've watched the episode, you already know what I'm going to say, but I'll get to that later. With respect to his jaunt to Argus, he gets to Argus, and the thing in the background that I'm going to talk about later was also evident at Argus, but then Flag shows up as Peacemaker is talking to Harcourt, and they're having what seems to be like this heartfelt, kind of awkward conversation, and Flag is clearly jealous, and they've made him kind of the overly jealous, bumbling idiot who feels extremely threatened by Peacemaker's presence, right? So this is complete reversal from the Suicide Squad, which is the last time that we saw any incarnation of Rick Flag Jr. alive. That Rick Flag Jr. was this close to killing Peacemaker until Peacemaker stabbed him in the heart. And, the rest is history, right? And all of that particular part of the Suicide Squad is canon, is part of the DCU, because the Project Starfish incident happened in that way in the DCU. Okay, cool. This is a clumsy, he's just out of his element. He the confidence and, the mannerisms of how Joel Kinnaman played the character in the Suicide Squad are not there. They're not there in this particular incarnation, at least not for this scene. When he knocks over the trash can and because he's trying to hide, because he's snooping on Peacemaker's meeting with Harcourt, like that's all of that clumsiness and all of that like bumbling idiocy is there, and it's like, okay, this is a bit uncharacteristic for this character, but all right. So he's insanely jealous of the idea of Peacemaker even remotely talking to Harcourt, let alone going out and actually having a conversation with her later. So it's like, all right, you set that up. We set up that Argus clearly exists in this world. All right, and so the whole walk through town that Harcourt and Peacemaker have, right? It's this heartfelt, emotional moment. You know, he's revealing some things, she's revealing some things, right? And they're legitimately having a conversation about whether or not she's going to legitimately leave Rick Flag in that universe and be with him again. And I'd mistakenly thought a couple of episodes prior that Harcourt was the one that broke it off with him, when in all actuality it was his version, like the other Peacemaker, the dead Peacemaker, that broke it off with her, because she talks about, you know, his selfishness and you know, his attitude and his dismissiveness, and she didn't want to get her heart broken again. And it's like, okay, well, you can kind of see that, right? Because if we're having these underlying theories and thoughts about how this universe operates, one could surmise that since we've already established that that Peacemaker was a drug addict and had substance abuse issues, may have also been an alcoholic as well, and was prone to disappearing at times, like going off on binges and benders, that he was probably an asshole. Like, even more of an asshole than our DCU Peacemaker is, right? Even more so than the DCEU Peacemaker was, right? So if that's the case, and he was, you know, in that realm of, like, emotional instability and insecurity, that he's the one that broke it off with Harcourt and he's the one that broke her heart, well, it's like, okay, well, this Peacemaker clearly has no intentions of doing so and wants to repair that bond for himself. And he sees an opening, and he sees an opportunity, and he says multiple times, best dimension ever. And even when the terrorist attack occurs, which I did not, that wasn't like a jump scare for me, where it was just like I didn't have a jump scare, but it was definitely a shocking, like, oh, okay, there's some shit, right? It didn't scare me, but like the explosion, the dude that explodes in the park while they're both sitting on that bench, was like, oh, wow, shit, okay, here we go, here's some action, right? And it's a terrorist organization that has, you know, infiltrated this government building, and the whole point is that they've taken everybody over, they've taken the office over at gunpoint, and they have rigged a bomb that they're going to detonate, right? And it's part of their whole plan. They're going to detonate different government institutions until demands are met and whatnot, right? And so this definitely seems like an opportunity for Peacemaker to play hero, which he does. And he's very violent, very brutal about it. Stabs a dude in the head with an axe, and the dude literally is like, wait, what just happened, right? That type of thing. You know, takes down everybody else with gunshot. Like, he dispatches these, this terrorist organization, you know, these people raiding this building, and disarms the bomb with relative ease, right? Like, I mean, he gets bloody, like, but it's not really a whole lot of pushback that he gets from this. He took them down pretty effortlessly. Like, he even takes them down without his suit, without his mask, without any of his other gadgets. Like, he takes them down by himself as a, you know, regular, you know, depowered human with no assistance whatsoever. You know, doesn't even have his own weapons on him at this point. Like, he's wearing just casual clothing that he was wearing when he went to go meet Harcourt. Like, he does all this before his brother shows up in the suit, right? And so, of course, he's lauded as the hero and celebrated and cheered. You know, his brother gives him the high five, and it's like, all right, all is good. He did the right thing. He did the great thing. He took out all those terrorists, like, killed like 6 or 7 guys, 6 or 7 people, men and women, in that regard, that were part of this this terrorist organization. And you know what? It's funny, because it's not funny, but it's intriguing, because this also, you know, this is where me having watched the Suicide Squad just yesterday also puts into perspective another possibility. Like, people who have seen the Suicide Squad multiple times probably were already thinking what now I'm thinking with respect to the group that he took out. And I'll get into this in just a bit here. But the way that this whole thing, you know, curves out is he basically, the door is open. Like, Harcourt now sees him, like this Harcourt, which I guess Gunn and others have said that they've taken to calling this version of Harcourt Thirst Court. That's what they call her. So Thirst Court is, the door is open. The door is absolutely open for Peacemaker to make his move and resume whatever relationship the other Peacemaker had with this version of her, right? And so, like, that door is wide open. She's seeing him in a different light, and you know, it's there, right? She even says in the message, like, it was really good to see you. You know, I was really happy. Hey, think about what I said, that type of thing. It's like, okay, yeah, and again, in the midst of all this hero worship, in the midst of this absolutely viable chance of him getting together with Harcourt, he says again, best dimension ever. Things are going entirely too right for him. Going entirely too perfect for him whatsoever. Too much hero worship, you know, too much love from his father and brother, who are both alive, and now he's got an open door to set up with Harcourt. And even the guilt, he's even spared of the guilt of having killed Rick Flag because Rick Flag is alive. Rick Flag Jr. is alive in this universe. So it's like the polar opposite of all the pain that he had in the DCU. The fact that the Justice Gang like took him out or dismissed him, right? Did not accept him into their ranks. The fact that he's the murderer of Rick Flag Jr. and he still has that on his head, and the fact that Harcourt just wants, seemingly on the surface, wants nothing to do with him, all of that is reversed. All of that is the complete opposite in this universe. So he is on cloud nine and then some. He is riding high, and the rest of us are just looking at this like going, when's the hammer gonna drop? When's it gonna happen? Is the hammer gonna drop? Because he's treating this like a drug now. Because at the end of the episode, he decides to go back through the doors back into the DCU. And the problem, of course, there is that in the DCU, they're dealing with the aftermath of eerily attacking Argus at Peacemaker's house. And, the whole, where like he ripped off an eye. And of course, now they're grilling Economos. Why didn't you tell me about this? And the whole bird blindness thing happens again, which I've talked about this on Vodka Stream with the guys the other night. And I am not a huge fan of Tim Meadows' character in this season. So much to the point that I've already forgotten what his name is again. But, that humor just doesn't land for me personally. It's just not that funny to me. It is what it is, but it doesn't take me out of the show. It doesn't like ruin the show for me whatsoever, right? So I'm okay with that. But, aside from that, so you've got that plot line going on, and then you've got the 11th Street kids also kind of dealing with, the what's going on with respect to that and just, like their struggles in general. But this basically culminates in Argus basically saying, okay, well, he's got this superpowered eagle protecting his home. Okay, now we're going to come out in full force. We're bringing an army. It was one thing to send a attack team there, but now we're bringing an entire strike team. And that's how the episode ends, right? The convergence of him coming back through the door into his home at the same time that Argus is about to raid it. And it's like, okay, dude, you're about to get caught. You're about to get, like, incarcerated. You're about to get erased. You're walking back into your old life. And my thought process is that this is probably going to be the impetus for him to say, I don't need the DCU at all. I'm just going to live in this other universe because I can literally have everything that I want. I can have my dad. I can have my brother. They both love me. I can have Harcourt. I can be this hero that I've always wanted to be, where everybody in town is, praising me and lauding me and crying over me and whatnot. That is the perfect life that I want. And I need to take it. I need to absolutely ditch this earth where the Justice Gang doesn't want me, Harcourt doesn't want me, and I'm a fugitive, and they just want to send me back to Belle Reve. Like, I can leave all of that in the dust and just completely, like, lose myself in this other universe of perfect nonsense that I can live in for the rest of my life, right? So that's what I'm thinking the fourth episode is going to be a decent amount of. He's going to get that reminder of how harsh and how awful the DCU is to him, and it's just going to push him to retreat further into the other universe. That's what I'm thinking. Because the preview for that episode didn't indicate that he was going to be like immediately arrested. It seemed like he was going to see that Argus was coming or get warned right by one of the others, and then he would find his way out. And of course the other little tidbit, the real quick tidbit that is thrown into this is that Judo Master's back. Because Argus has decided to give Economos another babysitter with respect to, dealing with Peacemaker. And, of course, it's going to be Judo Master, a dude he already had issues with in Season 1 back in the DCEU. So here we go, DCU Judo Master in this regard, right? But remember, the events of Season 1 pretty much happened the same way that they did in the DCU, just slight differences here and there. And Judo Master clearly, I don't know if there's anything, I don't remember anything in Season 1 being canonically different that was connected that would have to be changed. So that seemed pretty free and clear to me. And we knew he was returning. We already saw him in the opening credits, the opening credit dance and whatnot. We knew he was coming back. So we get to see him again. He's another return from the DCEU Season 1 of the show. So that's how this episode ends, on a cliffhanger, right? Like, he's coming back and Argus is attacking. Argus is invading and, coming to, arrest him. And it's like, okay, we'll see how that goes. We'll see what happens in the fourth episode. And that's pretty much it as far as, like, the basic, like, action, like, the basic plot movement that occurs in this particular episode. But I mentioned the background thing, earlier with respect to Rick Flag returning and, what that sets up in terms of like the Harcourt relationship and, the fact that he's now like assumed the hero worship, if you will, right? The people in town and everybody treating him like a hero. So now we get to talk about the ultimate elephant in the room, which really isn't an elephant in the room because everybody I saw caught this. And when I was watching the episode, I was literally looking like, okay, am I crazy or is this actually what this is? And it is. It 100% is. And I figured it out. Like I saw it, and then later that night, guys brought it up on Vodka Stream, and I'm like, okay, cool. I'm not the only one that saw this. Brooklyn Batman, I also saw it before I got on Vodka Stream. I saw that he posted a spoiler GIF, right? And I clicked on the spoiler GIF after I saw the episode. I was like, okay, he caught it. And Ben Everts at Real Anarchy caught it. So many people caught it. So no, it is obvious that this is being done on purpose, and there's a reason for it. And it's all about what the reason is. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I will point it out now. There are absolutely no brown people in that other Earth. None. Everyone that was praising him, everyone that worked at Argus, all the terrorists, the freedom fighters, if you will, all white. Everyone white. No black people of any shade to speak of. I wondered if a few of them might have been a tinge of brown or a little bit tan, but not really. Nope, not really. Anybody that could be considered brown or black, not visible whatsoever. None of the townspeople that were cheering him, the little boy that was cheering him, completely white. Everybody in that universe so far, white. Absolutely white. And I'm sorry, actually no, sorry, not sorry. We have to look at the history of his father, right? Augie is, like the flaming racist. Okay, he KKK incarnate. The White Dragon is literally the name of his particular character, if you will. And so it is very possible. There is no way. I told Ben this. He posted a TikTok video on this, and I said there is a 1,000% chance. There is a 0% chance. I said there is a 0% chance that James Gunn didn't do that on purpose. Absolutely. James Gunn is all about, like, diversity is a thing for him. It is. Watch the Guardians films, watch the Suicide Squad, watch Superman. Diversity is a thing that James Gunn absolutely leans into and considers important, right? That is a part of it. And he's said nothing. At least I haven't seen anything on. I'm sure plenty of people have asked him the question on Threads, and I haven't seen any responses to it, which tells me it's a plot point that he doesn't want to give away. And he's probably secretly happy, silently happy that people are catching on to it, because truthfully, you know what? I will say this, blending some real world like thoughts into this. This is one of those cases where you really hope people like pick up on this, because anybody that watches that episode and doesn't pick up on it, that's a little scary. Because if you think it's normal for a town to have nothing but white people in it, that's concerning, especially in this day and age, right? Now, if you're somebody that is just so cynical or whatever, or you just accept that that's what you've seen in your life, and you're not necessarily a racist, or you don't necessarily think that it's okay, and you didn't catch it, that's one thing. But if you saw nothing wrong with the hero worship, if you were about to be blindsided by whatever this twist is in the next couple of episodes, and that will surely give us a reason as to why everybody on this earth is only white, then if that's going to be a shock to the system to you, and you're not going to handle it well, then you have issues. You absolutely have issues, because yeah, it was painfully obvious, and I'm just sitting there the whole time like, okay, he's doing this on purpose. And whatever theories, I've already had some theories in my head about what is wrong with this earth. And, somebody brought up, I think it was Phil or somebody brought up Crisis on Earth X over in the CW, which that, of course, was, Oliver Queen and Kara Zor-El, they were Nazis, right? The evil versions of, our heroes, and also Reverse Flash from that universe were Nazis, like complete Nazis for that four-parter, which was that one of my favorite of the crossovers, truthfully. Probably still my favorite crossover. Like big crossover event in the DC CW, right? The Arrowverse, if you will, because Crisis on Infinite Earths was great. I'm not saying it wasn't, but like Crisis on Earth X, I just really, really enjoyed that one, to be honest with you. Like, I thought the story was incredibly organic, very poignant, very emotional at times, and I just really liked the way they did it. I also love the church battle at Barry and Iris's wedding and all the powers on display there. Yeah, I dug it. I really did. If you ever wanted to hear my thoughts on it, I think we're figuring out, like in the Suicide Squadcast, the Squadcast Media rather, archives, how to archive those episodes. That's an old episode of DC TV Squadcast back from 2019, because that was the year, right? Or no, might have been even before that. Actually, yeah, you know what? It was 2017. 2017, I think, was when Crisis on Earth X came out, because people were making comments about how it was better than Justice League. Which, yeah, you know what? It's better than Justice League, or Justice League. Most certainly it is. But I digress. Point is, there's something seriously wrong with this Earth. And now I'm of the opinion, I'm of the belief that it's centered around racism. It's centered around bigotry. This Earth probably doesn't have black people in it. No diversity whatsoever. And that probably is an issue. And that is definitely something, like I can absolutely buy James Gunn being topical with a situation like that, right? You know, the Superman stuff aside, right? Because I know plenty of people have made the connection about, you know, Baravia and Jarhanpur being an allegory for Israel and Gaza in Superman. And it's a great allegory, and I think it works. Of course it works. But it also works on a bigger, a broader level to talk about any totalitarian regime, you know, like trying to oppress a smaller regime that is not as well funded, not as well organized. Absolutely. But no, in recent memory, like with recent events, absolutely, you could consider Baravia Israel and Jarhanpur Gaza and Palestine, most certainly. No question about that. So James Gunn is no stranger to this. But even before that, remember season 1 of Peacemaker. Remember what Project Butterfly actually was. Remember what actually happened with Project Butterfly. Remember the aliens that were taking over. Their whole point was they wanted to help humanity. Remember that? Remember how the aliens in Project Butterfly said, we see what's going on with your government, we see what's going on with your people, and you're going in a wrong direction, you're going in a bad direction, and we know you're heading the wrong way, so we're helping you forcibly fix yourselves. And it was one of those cases where you had to look at it and go, well, son of a bitch. They have extremely benevolent intentions, and they wish to help right the ship, and they wish to help make society be actually good and be better than it ever has been, but they're doing it in the most violently nefarious way, and they're taking away the possibility of choice from human beings, so unfortunately they got to be dispatched, they got to be destroyed, right? But that's a social political angle that James Gunn has dealt with before. You know, like the twist of, hey, these aliens that are invading actually want to help you. So it's the morality question, right? Like, do you let them help you, or do you take them out because you still want the freedom to be able to choose good or bad in life? Knowing that plenty of people have been choosing bad their whole lives and will continue to choose bad going forward and will raise others to choose bad. What do you do, right? So it would not surprise me one bit if that's exactly where James Gunn is headed. Another socio-political plot line with respect to this Earth. And you know what? Dave the Film Junkie, he was talking about how, like, if and when that twist is revealed. And I agree with Brandon Davis. If that's not the twist, then James Gunn better be ready for a very awkward conversation about why everybody in that town is all white. Because if he didn't do that on purpose, then that's going to raise some eyebrows like, hey, dude, what'd you do that for? What was that about, right? And he'll have to explain it. He will. He will have to explain it. But I suspect, and I think the most of us suspect, that absolutely it is intentional for the plot. And Dave was saying that once that twist is revealed and once that plot line is absolutely exposed and Gunn does start talking about it, which he will, he most certainly will on Threads, right? Either in the companion podcast or on social media when he does the watch party afterwards, a couple of days later, when that discussion point, like his quotes are going to be, you know, screenshot and plastered, and they'll go straight to Fox News and they'll go straight to the White House or wherever else. And now all of a sudden, in addition to Superman being super woke, they'll call Peacemaker woke. Absolutely. The rage bait will be out there. They'll be all upset and all angry and all butthurt and all in their feelings, saying, oh, he's anti-white, da 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 da. Yeah, they're going to say that. They're going to. And absolutely they're going to say that. That particular talking point most certainly will rear its ugly and extremely ignorant head after this all gets revealed. After this twist gets shown to us, like, as far as us watching the show. So, you know what? But it's one of those where if you saw it, like if you caught it when you watched this episode, then give yourself a pat on the back because you understood that something was up. You understood that something was wrong. You understood that that is not representative of how the world actually is. It's not representative of the United States of America. Like, the world that we live in is far more diverse than what has been shown to us on this earth so far, this particular alternate earth that Peacemaker is in right now, right? At least some brown people. I mean, no one, not even the menial workers, not even the hired helper, whoever, right? Nothing. Everybody white. Yeah, no, it was so obvious, and for different perspectives, I can understand why it might not be as obvious, and maybe it wasn't as obvious for some of you listening to this. Maybe me telling you this is a revelation, you're like, oh my God, I didn't catch that. Well, I hope that you caught it now, and I hope that you understand why that's a thing to definitely pay attention to in that regard. And some people, I'm sure some fans were probably wrapped up in the Harcourt and Peacemaker story, or they were wrapped up in the Freedom Fighter bomb story, which this is where the Suicide Squad thing comes into play. Because I had forgotten that initially when they went to go rescue Flag, Waller had ordered them to kill everyone that they saw in order to get Flag back. And of course, as it turns out, Flag wasn't captured by the Corto Maltese army. He was captured by the Freedom Fighters fighting the evil Corto Maltese army. So the 15 to 20 guys that Bloodsport and Peacemaker murdered brutally in trying to rescue Flag were good guys. They murdered an entire team of freedom fighters. Unfortunately, it wasn't all the freedom fighters, and Alice Braga's character was actually able to lead the rest of them, to take back the capital after Jotunheim was destroyed. But the point is that Peacemaker found himself in a position where he killed a lot of good guys. And he may have just done the exact same thing here in this universe. It is entirely possible that whatever's going on with this all-white universe, that those white people, those freedom fighters, were fighting against the evil, tyrannical Nazi/KKK regime that this earth is built upon. Entirely possible. And he just took them all out. They may have been on the side of good, on the side of right with respect to their actions, and they were actually destroying an evil setup, right? And it's meant to flip you, right? It's meant to twist you because nobody in that office looks like they're evil, right? The secretary or the people, just pushing paper and pencils and, doing their own business, minding their own business. They look like innocent bystanders. There's nobody armed. Like, there's no, like officers or military or whatnot. I don't think, I mean, not in that particular office because they didn't invade Argus, right? So you don't see anybody there. They look like innocent hostages. They look like very innocent hostages throughout that entire building. But, maybe they weren't. Maybe they all Sieg Heiled after, off screen or whatnot. Or maybe we're going to see that later. Something to that effect. But yeah, I think that's an underlying theme here that, again, I'm glad I'm not the only one that caught this because, like I said, Brooklyn Batman posted it. Ben Everett's talked about it. The guys on Vodka Stream brought it up. And I've seen more and more people bring it up on threads. It's like, yeah, no, that's painfully obvious that there's something not right with respect to this earth having only white people in it in that regard. So yeah, looking forward to seeing that what is probably going to be a horrific twist, right? Just that they're all KKK, like it's a KKK earth, right? Or a Nazi earth, something to that effect. And, also looking forward to all of the sympathizers and all of the actual Nazis and KKK sympathizers and bigots calling it super woke, once that twist is revealed. And then they'll aim their ire at James Gunn yet again, and he can just say thank you for the free publicity because you helped Superman make over $600 million and prove once again that get woke, go broke is bullshit and doesn't mean a damn thing because it doesn't exist, right? All these idiots, like, on Fox News talking about, well, he's lost millions because he made it political. Yeah, well, that didn't happen. He did not lose money at all whatsoever with his political commentary, if you will, and he's not going to lose any eyeballs or whatnot over this. You're just giving him free publicity. So in many ways, he's manipulating you. And on top of that, like, I'm one of those people that I remember before the whole Twitter controversy that got him fired from the MCU. I remember what his Twitter presence used to be like and how outspoken politically he was and the things that he was saying. And that's what, garnered the ire of the alt-right and led them to seek out his old tweets to get him in trouble, to get him canceled, to get him fired, which is hilariously ironic because that's the group that, talks about how cancel culture is bullshit, whatever, and yet they use it any chance they can, as the hypocritical waste of space that they are in that regard, right? But knowing where James Gunn sits politically, knowing the things that he's said, knowing the ideals that he has espoused, there's no doubt in my mind that he did this on purpose and that it's going to be a horrific twist to let Peacemaker know this Earth is not good. This Earth is not good for you. I know that you're happy that you have a shot with Harcourt. You have you've got your brother and your father back and all that. But no, you can't have, remember Adebayo, right? Remember anybody else remember Bloodsport, right? Remember anybody else in your universe that, is a different shade than you. And remember your tolerance. Remember, you are a big promoter of peace even if you have to kill to get it. Well, there's nothing peaceful about racism. There's nothing peaceful about bigotry in that regard. And if that's the core of this Earth, then that's going to be what has to shake him out of it and push him back to the DCU where he belongs, right? And we'll see what happens. We're only 3 episodes in. There's 5 episodes left. We're not even technically at the halfway point. We're going to be after episode 4. We'll technically be at the halfway point. We're also not at the point where we get to the episodes that the critics and everybody else hadn't seen. Like, we'd heard all the praises had been sung, and the certified fresh rating on the Hell site, Rotten Tomatoes, was garnered off of the first 5 episodes. So we haven't even gotten to the point where we've gotten to the 3 episodes that nobody else has seen that he's keeping very close to the chest because of twists and whatnot. But I'll tell you, I will add, I've talked about how when it comes to the big cameos and big characters showing up, there was another picture that David Corenswet posted where he was on set of, clearly this was the Peacemaker set because it's him and John Cena has the blood splatter on his face from the scene where he took out the Freedom Fighters in episode 3, right? And Corenswet, once again, is in his Superman outfit. Now, again, we know that Peacemaker season 2 and Superman were filming at the same time. So yeah, maybe this was just a cross-set visit, but come on, man. Come on now. We've already seen the outlet of Corenswet's Superman in season 1 in the previously in the DCU shot. So we got to see him at some point, right? Like, that keeps becoming a thing between that picture and then the picture of him with Danielle Brooks, the actress who plays Adebayo, again in his Superman costume. Come on. He's got to be in season 2 of Peacemaker at some point, you would think. But as far as other characters coming back, I've already said I want Margot Robbie. Hopefully she returns as Harley, and that's a massive surprise. But you know what? Throw Rick Flag into the mix. Somebody suggested, I forget who it was on Vodka Stream, but somebody suggested that they would like Flag to cross universes and be alive again in the DCU. Yeah, because I wasn't necessarily happy with Flag being killed in the Suicide Squad anyway, and he was one of the 4 characters that they brought over from the first Suicide Squad film. Him, Viola Davis's Amanda Waller, Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn, and of course Jai Courtney's Captain Boomerang, who did get blown up, right? He did not make it because he was in the decoy team in the beginning of the Suicide Squad, right? Sorry, spoilers for the Suicide Squad. Anybody that hasn't seen it, it's been out for 4 years. But either way, right? Like, Joel Kinnaman bringing him back into the DCU fold, I think would be cool to have that Rick Flag back. And, it'd be interesting to see the dynamic between him and Frank Grillo, to see Flag Jr. and Flag Sr. together, right? Somebody had commented that they were close to the same age, so they had asked Gunn why would they be close to the same age, if I'm not mistaken. And as it turns out, they're not. Joel Kinnaman is 45 years old. Frank Grillo is 60. So technically, I mean, it'd be very early, very early. And if you're portraying Grillo as a couple of years older, then yeah, at 17, 18, he definitely could have, like whoever the mother was. I mean, it really depends on the age of the mother. But the point is there's enough of an age disparity between Frank Grillo and Joel Kinnaman that, you could see Grillo as being Kinnaman's father in that regard. It works the way they do. And of course, there's other ways, they can style the hair and they can, make Kinnaman look even younger and make Grillo look even older. There's definitely ways to do it, but there's definitely more than, there's a decade and a half disparity at least between the two that you can push out a couple more years to say that one is the son of the other in that regard. So that would be a cool dynamic to see, and it would also sew up, tie up that plot line so that Peacemaker isn't necessarily, doesn't have a big ass target on his back, which he still does, Rick Flag Sr. still wants to, doesn't trust him, wants to take him down, which is why this whole effort towards him at Argus has started in the first place, because he killed Flag Jr. in the DCU and the DCEU. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, very intriguing stuff so far, and I really don't have any complaints about the first 3 episodes. I think they've done a really good job of setting the table and a really good job of developing character dynamics and really putting us in the perspective of the DCU versions of these characters. And they're not very dissimilar whatsoever from what we saw in season 1, so we don't lose all the buildup and all of the work that was done in season 1 whatsoever just because it's DCEU, because again, the same stuff happened. It's just slightly different versions, slight tweaks here and there with respect to the DCU version, that is. So either way, it's been really good so far. We've got 5 episodes left. We'll come up on the halfway point after this week's episode, and then we will go from there, no doubt about it. And that is going to do it for this particular episode of Flightbox, a review of Peacemaker Season 2, Episode 3, another Rick up my sleeve. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for listening to this show and for supporting theflightcast.com. If you have any thoughts or any theories with respect to anything that I've talked about Peacemaker Season 2, Episode 3, and where you think the implications are down the road with respect to what we saw in this particular episode with the background stuff and even the foreground stuff with the main plot line, you know where to find me on Instagram and on Threads at the Flightcast, on BLUESKY at Flightcast. You can also comment on the posting for this episode on the Flightcast YouTube channel. There's also the Flightcast Facebook page, and of course I can be reached by email at ray@theflightcast.com. All right, take care, stay safe out there, and I will see you all next time. Take it easy.